Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our series, Unsolved Mysteries Around the World, where we uncover chilling and unexplained cases from across the globe. After exploring England's foggy alleys and America's haunted woods, today we travel to a land that is vast, icy, and steeped in secrets, Russia. A country with a deep and complex history, military enigmas, and unsolved cases so disturbing, they continue to puzzle the world. Before we dive into today's case, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel, and stay with us on this mysterious journey around the world. And to begin this chilling exploration, we uncover one of the most infamous and terrifying tragedies in Russian history, a 1959 incident on a snow-covered mountain in the Ural Range. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. January 1959. The Ural Mountains, a vast, icy expanse dividing Europe and Asia, shrouded in mystery. In this remote corner of the Soviet Union, the dream of 9 young adventurers turned into a nightmare that has never been fully understood. The group consisted of 8 students and 1 guide, all strong, experienced hikers. Their goal, to reach Mount Otorten. In the language of the local Mansi people, that name means, "Don't go there." But they went anyway. Before vanishing, the group kept detailed journals, took photographs, and even sang songs around campfires. The remaining photos capture laughter, joy. No one could have known they were documenting their final days. The expedition began like any other, with excitement, friendship, and the thrill of adventure. But within days, everything went silent. No one came back, no signal, no cry for help, just endless snow and a trail of footprints leading into horror. On January 27, 1959, the Dyatlov group left Vizhai, the last inhabited settlement before entering the wilderness. The weather was brutal, sub-zero temperatures, deep snow, fierce winds. Still, they marched on, determined to complete the 350-kilometer trek. On January 28th, one member, Yuri Yudin, turned back due to joint pain. He would become the only survivor. The remaining 8 continued. They hiked, camped, took pictures. The final photos show smiling faces, hopeful, unaware of the doom that awaited. On February 1st, the group began ascending Kholat Shakal. In Mansi, it means Dead Mountain. They planned to cross it to reach Mount Otorten, but worsening weather forced them off course. They stopped and set up camp right on the exposed slope, instead of retreating to the forest below. Why camp on a barren, windswept slope? Maybe they were training for extreme conditions. Maybe they were too exhausted to descend. Or maybe they had no other choice. That night was their last. No one lived to see the dawn. February 12th, 1959, the day the Dyatlov group was supposed to return. But no word came. No telegram. No signal. At first, people assumed delays due to the weather. But as days passed, concern turned into dread. Parents began to demand answers. On February 20th, a full search mission was launched, involving students, teachers, military personnel, locals, and Mansi hunters. On February 26th, one search team spotted the group's tent, pitched on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, fully exposed to the elements. And the strangest part? The tent was slashed open from the inside. The cuts were deep and deliberate, as if someone inside had panicked and clawed their way out into the freezing night. Tracks in the snow, barefoot or in socks, led downhill toward the forest, in minus 30 degrees C. At the edge of the forest, beneath a tall cedar tree, the first 2 bodies were found, Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonyshenko, lying side by side near the remains of a small fire. Both were stripped to their underwear. Their hands were burned, as if they had desperately tried to keep the fire alive. A few hundred meters closer to the tent, 3 more bodies were found: Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin, appearing to have tried crawling back to camp. But they never made it. No blood, no signs of struggle, no enemies. Only the cold and something unseen. It wasn't until May, when the snow began to melt, that the final 4 bodies were discovered, buried beneath nearly 4 meters of snow, deep in a ravine, 75 meters from the original camp. They were Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolovatov, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Nikolai Thibault Brignoles. And when the corpses were recovered, the case took a darker, more disturbing turn. Nikolai, his skull was crushed, yet his face was almost untouched. Semyon, multiple broken ribs, like he had been struck with immense force. Alexander, no visible wounds, but massive internal trauma. And Lyudmila was the most horrifying. She was missing her tongue, missing her eyes, her ribs crushed, her cheeks twisted. Some said wild animals scavenged her body. But there were no bite marks, no blood, and her face appeared frozen in a silent scream. Even more chilling, several items of clothing were radioactive, traces of radiation in the middle of a remote frozen mountain. Forensic experts described the injuries as resembling those from a high-speed car crash, but without corresponding external damage. No evidence of an avalanche, no signs of struggle, no one else had been there. Just the 9 hikers. So what, or who, could have done this? The mysterious deaths of the 9 hikers gave rise to countless theories, from the rational to the unthinkable. Theory 1. Avalanche. Some investigators proposed that a sudden avalanche caused the hikers to panic and flee into the night. But, if that were true, why was the tent still standing? Why did they run over a kilometer and not return? Theory 2. Soviet military testing. At the time, Dyatlov Pass was near restricted military zones. One theory suggests they stumbled upon secret tests involving sound weapons, chemicals, or radioactive devices. This might explain the bizarre injuries and radioactive clothing. Theory 3. Attack by Mansi people. Some speculated that the indigenous Mansi killed them for trespassing sacred land, but the investigation showed no signs of struggle, no traces of outsiders, and the Mansi themselves helped in the rescue efforts. Theory 4. Alien encounter. Others believe it was a supernatural encounter. Witnesses reported seeing strange lights in the sky above the Ural Mountains on the night of the tragedy. The signs of panic, the unexplainable trauma, all hint at something not of this world. Theory 5. The Yeti. As bizarre as it sounds, some have claimed the group was attacked by a mythical creature, a giant snow-dwelling beast. One photo from the hiker's camera even appears to show a large, shadowy figure in the woods. A hoax? Or something real lurking in the Ural wilderness? When the forensic reports and autopsy results were released, the public could no longer stay calm. Several details simply defied logical explanation. Some victims had crushed ribs and fractured skulls, yet no bruising on the skin, as if compressed by an immense force, not caused by a typical impact. One of them was missing their tongue and eyes, yet the wounds showed no signs of animal scavenging. The clothes of several members were found to have abnormally high levels of radiation. These findings fueled the theory of secret military weapon tests. Some believed Dyatlov and his group had unknowingly entered a Soviet military testing zone, possibly encountering sonic weapons, thermobaric bombs, or even small-scale nuclear devices. Another terrifying theory emerged. They may have come face to face with an unknown creature, some call it the Ural Yeti, based on the discovery of large, unidentifiable footprints around the site. Still, others lean toward the idea of UFO involvement. Witnesses from a nearby village reported seeing strange flashes of light in the sky the same night the group vanished, Several photos found on the group's camera were mysteriously blurred, possibly due to a sudden intense light. But some explanations were otherworldly. The mountain where their bodies were found, Kholat Shakal, means mountain of the dead in the local Mansi language. It was believed to be cursed land, where no one should tread after dark. The theories are many. They contradict one another, but they all share one terrifying truth. No one truly knows what happened that night. As the bizarre details of the Dyatlov group's deaths spread, public pressure forced Soviet authorities to launch an official investigation. But instead of bringing clarity, the probe only deepened the mystery. Shockingly, the case was closed hastily, with a vague conclusion. The hikers died due to an overwhelming force of unknown origin. No clear explanation, no suspect, no accountability. A flood of unanswered questions remained. Why did they flee their tent into the freezing night, barefoot and underdressed? What kind of force could crush bones without damaging soft tissue? Where did the radiation come from? And who, or what, removed the victim's tongue? Multiple witnesses later claimed they were threatened into silence, and the investigation files were sealed for decades. The military was reportedly dispatched to the area, but their presence and activities were heavily redacted or hidden. Some of the original searchers later confessed, "We saw things we were never supposed to speak of." In the years that followed, journalists, scientists, and victims' families fought to uncover the truth, but every path they took led only to dead ends. Over 60 years have passed since the Dyatlov tragedy, but the shadow of that night has never lifted. Each new generation returns to the case, offering bold and haunting theories. Natural phenomena, avalanches, infrasound, Kármán vortex streets, mass hallucination triggered by toxins or low-frequency waves, aliens or mysterious creatures said to inhabit the Ural Mountains, top-secret military experiments with unknown weapons, or worse, a failed escape attempt from forces they once trusted. Each theory has its believers, and each is riddled with contradictions. In 2020, Russian authorities reclassified the case, attributing it to an avalanche and extreme weather. But many saw it as yet another attempt to bury something far more disturbing. Still, across the internet and deep in public imagination, the Dyatlov incident is more than an unsolved case. It has become a modern legend, where truth and myth swirl like the fog over the Ural peaks. They say if you visit the pass, you'll feel something watching you. And to this day, those 9 young souls remain a chilling reminder of a question with no answer. What really happened at Dyatlov Pass? The Dyatlov Pass case ends with questions still unanswered. Decades have passed, and all we're left with are strange footprints in the snow and bodies frozen in silence. But Russia, this vast and haunted land, holds mysteries far beyond its icy mountains. Sometimes, the most terrifying secrets lie not in the wild, but right in the heart of the city. Not in the cold wilderness, but on the sidelines of everyday life. A suitcase, abandoned by a highway, would soon send shockwaves across the country. And this time, inside that suitcase, was the body of a child. Russia, 2020. A stretch of lonely highway near the town of Kirov. A woman walking her dog stumbles upon a strange, red suitcase. Abandoned, dirty, and zipped shut. What she finds inside is something no one should ever see. Inside the suitcase was the body of a young boy. No documents, no identification, only a small toy dinosaur beside him, as if someone had tried to comfort him in his final moments. The discovery shocked the entire region. Who was this child? Why was his body stuffed into a suitcase and left to rot by the side of the road? As the police arrived at the scene, they quickly confirmed the horrifying truth. Inside the suitcase was the body of a boy, no more than 5 years old. He had been carefully wrapped in blankets, with no visible injuries. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no bruises. Who was he? There had been no missing child reports in the area, no parents searching, no neighbors noticing anything strange. To the authorities, it was as if the boy had appeared from nowhere, and no one even missed him. Investigators checked local CCTV footage. Nothing. They searched missing children databases. No match. The only clue, the toy dinosaur. A cheap plastic trinket bought in bulk, the kind you find in discount stores. The town of Kirov was rattled. People began to wonder, could the boy have been killed elsewhere? Was he trafficked? Abandoned? The suitcase had no fingerprints. Even the zippers had been wiped clean. The autopsy was expected to give answers, but instead, it raised even more questions. The boy was around 4 to 5 years old. No external injuries, no signs of physical abuse, broken bones, or malnutrition. But he had been dead for at least 2 weeks. The cause of death? Inconclusive. No poison, no trauma. The heart just stopped. One detail stood out. The boy had traces of sleeping pills in his system. Enough to sedate, but not to kill. Was someone trying to keep him quiet? His hands were clean, nails trimmed. He had been bathed recently. Whoever he was with had taken care of him until the very end. Was it a parent? A caretaker? A trafficker? Someone who cared? Or someone who wanted him erased without a trace? With no name, no ID, and no missing child reports matching his description. The boy was labeled Unknown Number 7 in the national database. Police reached out to the public. Thousands of tips flooded in, but none led anywhere. They searched orphanages, foster homes, and hospitals. No one recognized him, as if he had never existed in any official system. CCTV along the highway showed no one dropping the suitcase. It had been placed there, without a trace. The suitcase itself? Unremarkable, common brand, no fingerprints, no DNA. Just silence. Online sleuths got involved. Some theorized illegal adoption rings, others whispered about rituals. But the police stayed quiet. The silence was deafening, as if someone powerful didn't want the truth to surface. Who was this boy? Where did he come from? Why was his body hidden so carefully? Only to be left in a suitcase by the highway? He wasn't abused. He wasn't neglected. His body showed signs of being cared for. Until the very end. Some theorized he was the secret child of someone powerful. A diplomat, a wealthy family, even a criminal kingpin. A child whose very existence had to be erased. Others claimed the boy had been part of an illegal adoption gone wrong. Brought into Russia, then disposed of when things didn't go as planned. Then, there were darker whispers. Was he part of an occult ritual? A sacrificial offering? The forensic signs, like the cleaned body and precise placement, raised questions. Years passed. The case went cold. But from time to time, someone posts his photo again, and the question resurfaces. Who was the boy in the suitcase? We wish the mystery ended there, but Russia has no shortage of eerie disappearances, and some are even more terrifying, because an entire family vanished, without a trace, leaving behind a half-eaten meal, a warm fireplace, and a silence that still echoes through the Ural Mountains. In the winter of 2013, deep in the remote Ural Mountains, a family of 5 vanished from their wooden cottage. The last known contact was a neighbor who waved to them 3 days earlier. No goodbye, no packed bags, just gone. When police arrived, they found no signs of violence. The dinner table was set, the food half-eaten. Fire was still burning in the stove. Even the family dog had been left behind, whimpering, starving. But of the parents and their 3 children? Nothing. No footprints, no calls, as if they had simply melted into the forest. The investigation began immediately, but the scene was untouched. No forced entry, no blood, no signs of struggle. Snow surrounded the house, yet no footprints led away. It was as if the family had vanished into thin air. Search teams scoured the area. Drones, dogs, even helicopters. Nothing. Inside the cottage, something strange was found. A notebook filled with odd diagrams, hand-drawn maps, and numbers. One phrase repeated over and over again. "We must go where the light can't follow." Was it a message, a warning, or a sign of mental breakdown? 2 weeks later, a local hunter reported something odd. A burned-out campfire, deep in the woods, with a camera, half buried beneath the snow. The footage on it? Grainy, shaky, but haunting. It showed the missing father, Ilya, in a dense forest at night, whispering frantically to the camera. "They're coming. They know we're here. If you find this, don't go to the mine." The rest of the video was silent. Just dark trees, heavy breathing, and at the very end, a distant metallic hum, like machinery, echoing from underground. The video sparked a new wave of searches. Rescue teams, journalists, and even paranormal investigators flooded the Ural forest. But no bodies were ever found. Just more unsettling clues. A set of children's footprints, barefoot, frozen in place. A page from a notebook, torn, scribbled with strange mathematical symbols, and the words, "Depth 38. They're watching." Speculation exploded online. Some said the family stumbled onto a secret military facility, or an abandoned Soviet experiment buried underground. Others believed they entered a dimensional rift hidden beneath the mountains. One theory stood out. The mine mentioned in Ilya's video? It was sealed shut in 1982, after multiple workers went insane, claiming they heard voices underground. A decade has passed. No remains, no arrests, no closure. Ilya's video, still online, has become a digital ghost, shared on obscure forums, whispered about in late-night threads. Some claim new coordinates appear in the background if you enhance the contrast. Others say the video changes slightly every year, as if it's still alive. Officially, the Ural family is listed as presumed dead. Unofficially, their names have become part of modern Russian folklore, another cautionary tale about what happens when you venture too deep. Into the forests, into forgotten tunnels, into places you were never meant to find. And perhaps that's the scariest part. They didn't vanish into the past. They vanished into something else. The silence of the Ural forest still haunts us, but even in the heart of Moscow, another stranger vanished. And this time, the flames whispered his name. Moscow, 2014. A snowy morning in the capital city of Russia. Commuters rush through the cold, but then, something horrifying brings everything to a stop. In the middle of a square, a man stands still, covered in a liquid, holding a lighter, and before anyone can react, he sets himself on fire. The fire blazes for nearly a minute before anyone dares get close. But by then, it's too late. The man is unrecognizable. No documents, no name, just a silent body burned beyond recognition. Who was this man? Why did he choose such a terrifying way to die? In public, in silence? The man died instantly. No chance to ask why. No chance to hear his final words. When police arrived, all that was left was a charred body, a melted lighter, and a few scorched patches of clothing. There was no wallet, no phone, no identification. Just a ring, silver, bent from the heat. Investigators were stunned. Suicide, protest, madness. The square had no note, no sign, no message. Eyewitnesses were just as confused. They said the man didn't speak, didn't scream. He just stood silently, drenched in liquid, and lit himself up. Security footage revealed more questions than answers. The man had walked into the square alone. No hesitation, no looking around. He knew exactly what he was going to do, but no one knew who he was. And even worse, no one came looking for him. The silver ring was the only personal item left, melted and deformed, but still intact enough to examine. It had an inscription, barely visible. VM 0806 1997. Was it a wedding ring? A memory? Or a code? Investigators traced the initials VM through the city's marriage records, but nothing matched. Then came a breakthrough. From a security camera 2 blocks away, footage showed the man walking out of a metro station at 4:42 p.m. Same coat, same gait. But this time, he was holding something. A black plastic bag, the same type found partially burned near his body. They checked every shop near the station. And finally, at 4:15 p.m., he was caught on tape. He entered a small market, paid cash, and bought a bottle of lighter fluid. No words, no phone call, no sign of doubt. Who was this man who calmly prepared for death and vanished from the world as if he had never existed? The case stirred intense speculation. With no identity, no motive, and no note, people began filling in the blanks with terrifying theories. Some believed he was a former intelligence agent. Maybe he knew too much. Maybe he was being hunted. His self-immolation could have been a message, or a last-ditch way to escape capture. Others suspected protest. In Russia, self-immolation has been used as a shocking form of dissent. From the 1960s to the 2010s, activists, unheard, ignored, or silenced, have set themselves on fire in public. Could this man have been protesting something so personal or so dangerous he couldn't even leave a note? And then there's the quietest theory, the most tragic one. Mental illness, a lonely man unraveling from the inside, carrying pain no one could see, no friends, no family, no one to stop him. Theories abound, but truth? Still lost in smoke. When police exhausted every traditional method, they turned to something else: technology. Forensic teams extracted DNA from what remained. It was clean, undamaged, remarkably intact. They uploaded it to local and international missing persons databases. But no match. Not in Russia, not in Europe, nowhere. Next, a team of digital artists created a facial reconstruction. Based on bone structure, they built a model of what he might have looked like. They posted it online, on forums and Reddit threads dedicated to cold cases. The image spread. Across Russia, then beyond, thousands saw it. But no one recognized him. Authorities checked everything. CCTV footage across the metro, cell tower data, banking activity, social media. Nothing. In a city of 12 million people. He was a ghost. No record, no trail, no past. The case remained open. But without a name, it faded. Years have passed since that morning in March 2014. Yet the man with no name remains a question Moscow still cannot answer. Sometimes mysteries don't give answers. Sometimes, all they leave behind is a haunting echo. And we're left wondering, what if we missed something? One man burned to death in public, a chilling act of protest or madness. But elsewhere in Moscow, another man chose silence over spectacle. No flames, no attention, just a door, locked from the inside, and behind it, a mystery far more unsettling. It was mid-October in 2020, an ordinary autumn evening in Moscow. Leaves falling, the wind howling softly between the buildings. At an old apartment block in the city's outskirts, a strange silence lingered in the hallway. Flat 301 hadn't been opened in weeks. The neighbors hadn't seen the man living there, a quiet, polite 40-something named Oleg Sokolov, since early September. They thought he might have gone on a trip. Until a foul stench began to seep through the cracks of the door. Someone finally called the police. They arrived around 8:40 p.m. The door was locked, bolted from the inside. When they forced it open, what they found was chilling. When officers stepped inside Flat 301, the air was thick. A mix of decay, dust, and something unnatural. The man, identified as Oleg Sokolov, was slumped in a chair by the dining table. Decomposition suggested he had died at least 4 to 6 weeks earlier. There were no signs of struggle, no forced entry, no drugs, alcohol, or food around. Just Oleg, sitting upright, his body rotting in eerie silence. But here's where it gets strange. The front door was locked from the inside. The only window was latched shut, no fire escape, no balcony. Even weirder, the deadbolt key was found inside Oleg's pants pocket. How did he lock the door? After he died, investigators were baffled. They triple-checked the apartment. No hidden passage, no crawl space, no trick lock. There was simply no way out. So how could a man be found dead inside a sealed room, with the key in his pocket? One theory: he took his own life and locked the door before dying. But the autopsy ruled out suicide. No toxins, no wounds, no heart failure. He just stopped living. Some officers whispered another theory. Was it a case of spontaneous human death, or something darker, even more bizarre? Neighbors claimed they heard Oleg's TV on for weeks, flickering through the thin walls, but the power had been shut off days before he was discovered. Others swore they saw movement in the window, long after the estimated time of death, just when the case seemed to be frozen. A new clue emerged. Police retrieved security footage from the building across the street. One angle faced directly toward Oleg's apartment window. The footage was grainy, but at 2:13 a.m., 3 days after Oleg's estimated time of death, a tall figure in a long black coat appeared on screen. He stood motionless, facing the window. No attempt to enter, no sign of movement. He remained there for exactly 44 seconds, then turned and walked away into the fog. Zooming in, investigators noticed something chilling. The figure wore a strange mask, pale, expressionless, almost porcelain-like. And when the video was enhanced, you could see him holding something. A single iron key. Digging into the apartment's history, investigators uncovered something that had been buried for over a decade. Before Oleg moved in, the same apartment had been home to a man named Yakov Ivankov, a retired locksmith who lived alone. In 2002, Yakov was found dead in the exact same position as Oleg, kneeling, forehead touching the floor, with an old iron key in his hand. His death was ruled as natural causes at the time. But after Oleg's case, detectives reopened the old file, and what they found was disturbing. Yakov had kept dozens of keys in his apartment, but no one ever figured out what they opened. Some were handmade. Some were duplicates of keys from buildings that no longer existed. His diary, recovered from police archives, contained this chilling line: "If the key turns twice, he is already inside." After the second death, the authorities officially sealed apartment 3B. No one was allowed in. No one wanted to go in. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises from inside the apartment: scratching, clicking, and sometimes the sound of keys turning in a lock. One old woman who lived across the hallway claimed, "Every night at 3:17 I hear someone locking and unlocking the door, over and over again." A team of paranormal researchers requested access. They were denied, but one janitor, who had to inspect the pipes due to a water leak, went in one afternoon. He came out pale, trembling, and refused to ever speak of what he saw. His only words: "The lock is on the inside." An apartment. 2 deaths, 11 years apart. 2 men kneeling, clutching the same old iron key. A turning lock, with no one inside. Was something imprisoning those who lived in that flat? Or did they lock themselves in, unable or unwilling to ever come out again? Locked doors, trapped lives. But sometimes, the danger doesn't come from inside 4 walls. It comes from the wilderness. The Russian wilderness has always held secrets. Harsh, cold, and unforgiving. In 1993, deep in the remote forests of the Buryatia region, a group of experienced hikers set out on a winter expedition. They never returned. What investigators later discovered would remind many of the Dyatlov Pass incident: a frozen campsite, shredded tents, scattered bodies, and no clear explanation. The year was 1993. In a remote forest-covered region of Buryatia, southern Siberia, a group of young explorers set off into the taiga and never came back. It wasn't until weeks later that pieces of the mystery began to surface. A lone hiker stumbled upon a campsite abandoned in haste, backpacks left behind, food still uneaten, tents slashed open from the inside, no sign of the group. The case would quickly be compared to the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident. But this time, something was even stranger. Because when search teams finally uncovered the bodies, what they found was beyond comprehension. One of the hikers was found sitting upright against a tree, eyes wide open in terror. Another had no external injuries, but their heart had stopped mid-beat, and several of them were found half naked, as if fleeing something. Something unseen. Something terrifying. Just what happened deep in the forest of Buryatia. Why did a group of experienced hikers suddenly fall victim to a force they couldn't escape? And why does this case remain classified to this day? The group consisted of 7 people, most of them students and recent graduates from Ulan-Ude, the capital of Buryatia. They were in their early 20s, fit, energetic, and passionate about nature. Among them was Ivan Burkanov, a 23-year-old hiking enthusiast who had completed several solo expeditions into the taiga before. Then there was Anastasia Kabarova, the group's photographer, known for her detailed travel journals. And Sergei Ivanenko, a medical student with first aid experience, practical and calm under pressure. Their plan was simple: to hike across the Kamar-Daban Mountains, a rugged range near Lake Baikal, and camp for 12 days. They had checked in with local authorities before leaving. Their route had been mapped carefully. They brought enough food, tents, gear, and even a shortwave radio. The first few days went well. They passed small villages, took pictures near frozen streams, and shared updates via radio. But then, on the 6th day, the messages stopped. No more calls, no more signals. Silence. Days turned into a week. Local rangers were notified. Search parties were deployed. But what they found in the taiga would defy logic. The first discovery was made 9 days after the last radio contact. A search team, traveling by helicopter and foot, finally located the group's base camp, deep in the Kamar Daban wilderness. But what they found made no sense. The tent was still standing. Their backpacks, food supplies, and warm clothes were all inside, untouched. Even their boots were placed neatly at the entrance, but the group was gone. More disturbingly, the tent had been slashed open, from the inside, not unzipped, not torn by an animal, but cut with a blade, as if someone, or several people, had fled in panic. Searchers followed a trail of footprints. They led away from the tent, down the snowy slope, into a dense part of the forest. The tracks were barefoot, or in socks. It was 20 degrees Celsius. No sane person would abandon warm boots and jackets in that temperature, but the group had. And then, the first bodies were found. The first two bodies were found beneath a cedar tree, just a few hundred meters from the tent. It was Valery and Sasha, two of the young hikers. They were half naked, lying side by side, face up, frozen stiff. Their hands were badly burned, with skin charred and blackened. Nearby, there was evidence of a small campfire. But strangely, only branches from the lower part of the cedar had been broken, suggesting someone had tried to climb it, maybe in desperation. Just 300 meters away, the body of Tatiana, the most experienced member after Lyudmila, was found. She was fully clothed but had no shoes. She appeared to have collapsed face down, mid-step. It didn't stop there. A few days later, the body of Alexander, the cheerful, talkative hiker, was found a bit farther up the slope. Again, no shoes, no outer clothing, and his face twisted in horror. And still, Lyudmila, the group leader, and the final two hikers were missing. It wasn't until mid-May, 2 months after the group disappeared, that the last bodies were found. They were buried under deep snow in a small ravine near a stream, 70 meters from where Alexander's body had been discovered. The first was Lyudmila Korovina, the group leader. Her body was found on her back, arms twisted unnaturally, mouth frozen open in a silent scream. Her eyes missing, her tongue gone, her chest caved in, as if crushed by an immense external force. But there were no external wounds, no blood, no signs of animal scavenging. Next to her were Denise and Nikolai, the two missing boys. Both were dressed more fully than the others, but had severe internal injuries, including multiple broken ribs, internal bleeding, and, just like Lyudmila, their eyes were missing and tongues were cut out. The injuries resembled those from high-speed crashes, yet no external bruises or cuts. Medical examiners were baffled. Nothing made sense. And once again, people started comparing it to Dyatlov Pass. Same country, same strange internal trauma, same freezing wilderness, same fear on the faces of the dead. As the truth behind the hikers' deaths remained elusive, theories began to swirl. Some were scientific, others deeply disturbing. One theory claimed that the group accidentally stumbled upon a secret military experiment, possibly a test of microwave or sonic weapons. Such technology, even in early forms, could cause extreme internal trauma, bleeding from the eyes and ears, hallucinations, and paralysis, without leaving any external wounds. And if the group had encountered something like that, panic would spread fast. People might collapse, foam at the mouth, or flee in blind terror, just like what was seen. But why them? Why that exact location? That's when another possibility emerged. Was it a cursed place? Locals whispered about that part of Buryatia being haunted, a place where ancient shamans once banished malevolent spirits. Some legends even spoke of mountains that scream, or a silent killer wind that drives people mad. Could the group have triggered something? Or was it simply nature's fury, misjudged by inexperienced youth? Hypothermia, after all, can cause paradoxical undressing, hallucinations, and irrational behavior. But even this theory fails to explain the missing eyes, tongues, and massive internal injuries. And the most chilling theory of all? Some believe Lyudmila, the group's mentor, wasn't just a hiking instructor. They say she was part of a secret survival cult, practicing extreme endurance techniques that had once bordered on military training or ritual. Could something have gone terribly wrong during an exercise? We may never know. Just when it seemed the case couldn't get stranger, the inconsistencies began to emerge. Official reports claimed the group was well equipped, but photographs and witness accounts say otherwise. Inadequate clothing, mismatched boots, no satellite or emergency radio. Even the timeline was conflicting. Locals said they heard screams and a strange humming noise 3 days before the estimated time of death. Why the discrepancy? Then came the oddest detail. The last person to see them alive, a lone herder, said something chilling. I saw them, not walking, but stumbling like blind men. And behind them, something in the trees, watching, following. But the statement was later omitted from official files. The disappearance and chilling deaths of the Buryatia hikers in 1993 remain one of the deepest and most perplexing mysteries in modern Russian history. Decades later, no official conclusion has ever been clearly released. No detailed forensic reports have been made public. No rational explanation has managed to connect all the strange pieces of this haunting puzzle. Whatever files existed, if any remain, have been sealed or simply vanished. Locals now speak of the case like a legend, mixed with fear and reverence for the unforgiving nature of the Siberian wilderness. The victims' families, after years of seeking answers and justice, have fallen silent, not because they gave up, but perhaps because they understood something deeper. Some truths aren't meant to be told. Some secrets aren't buried by time, but by choice, by those who know too much and say too little. Just like the Dyatlov Pass incident in 1959, another group of hikers found dead under strange and terrifying conditions with no clear answers, just like the Burning Man in Moscow, or the Locked Door Man who bled to death in a sealed apartment with no signs of forced entry. Each case is unique, different people, different places, different times, but all share one chilling trait. The truth always slips away. And in the end, we can only ask ourselves, are there places not meant for humans to tread? Are there mysteries we were never meant to solve? The answers, perhaps, were buried with them, forever. Russia, a land of vast wilderness, chilling winters, and stories buried deep beneath the snow. From the silent forest of Buryatia to the frozen slopes of the Dyatlov Pass, from locked doors in Moscow to suitcases hiding unspeakable horrors, these mysteries remain unsolved. Some say the truth is lost forever. Others believe it's still out there, waiting, hidden in old files, in silent witnesses, or in the shadows of those who know more than they say. So we ask you, what really happened? Where is the truth? And will these Russian mysteries ever be solved? Until then, we can only watch, wonder, and wait.